Back in 2011, on the day I launched my first business, what looked like a statistical miracle took place in my kitchen. Poaching eggs for breakfast, I cracked open 4 eggs. The first was a double yolker, something I'd heard of but never seen before. The second, also a double yolker. I called my wife in, cracked the third egg open, again a double yolker. With a sense of anticipation, I cracked open the fourth, 4 double yolkers in a row. What are the odds against that happening? Huge, you might think. I decided that such an unusual event happening was a good omen for the business that was launching that day, but I also went on to Google to try and find out what might have caused this. A few days ago, amusingly, the day my new book on statistics launched, I cracked open the first egg in a new carton, and it was a double yolker. Once again, I decided it was a good omen, but this time I knew that the carton likely contained more double yolkers. When I looked up the probability of an egg having 2 yolks, I learned that 1 in every 1,000 eggs on average is a double yolker. So if the probability of finding an egg with 2 yolks is 1 in 1,000, then the likelihood of discovering 4 in a row can be simply calculated by multiplying the probabilities together 4 times. 1,000 to the power of 4 brings us to 1 in 1 trillion, a trillion being a million million. If true, that would mean that the event that occurred in my kitchen back in 2011 was a 1,000,000,000 to 1 event. But is that true? The short answer is no. Whenever something that unlikely happens, you have to question if something else is going on. What you have to consider is the fact that these eggs are likely to come in clusters. I learned that double-yolked eggs almost always come from young hens that are 20 to 28 weeks old. A young chicken laying its first few eggs can release more than 1 egg and form a single shell around the 2 eggs, and out pops a rather large egg with 2 egg yolks in it. The chances of getting a double yolk from a young hen is much higher than 1 in 1,000. It's about 1 in 100. In addition, the eggs in any carton are very likely to come from the same farm and the same flock of birds. And chicken farms usually contain chickens of around the same age simply because the farmer buys them in bulk. On that basis, we can say that while the chances of finding 1 double yolk egg may be 1 in 1,000, the chance of finding a second in the same carton is considerably higher, possibly 1 in 100. And the same then goes for the third and fourth egg. So taking all of that into account, we can do the math and see 1,000 times 100 times 100 times 100 equals 1 billion. So the probability of finding 4 eggs in a row in a single box is 1 in a billion, which is still extremely unlikely. A 1 in a billion event is still a big deal, although compared to 1 in a trillion chance, the difference is, of course, huge. A trillion is 1,000 times bigger than a billion and amounts to the difference between something happening maybe once a week compared to once every 20 years. So was this event a 1,000,000,000 to 1 event? Once again, probably not. There's another important factor that we need to consider: the size of the eggs. Double yolk eggs are far more likely to be large, yet the eggs the young birds lay are normally small. Any large eggs that are laid at a farm would be picked out and boxed together simply because eggs are usually sorted by size. This means that if you find a large double yolk egg and you know that the other eggs in the box are from the same young flock, then the chance that the other eggs are also double yolkers becomes a lot more likely. So our first calculation, where we worked out that it was a 1 in a trillion event, only works if the 2 events are independent of each other. In the world of insurance, examining the probability of someone crashing into your car and being uninsured requires considering whether these events are independent of each other. It might be that the type of person who is willing to drive a car uninsured is also the type of person who neglects to maintain the safety equipment on their car, and they might also be the type of person who is more likely to make foolish decisions while driving. If you find this sort of thing interesting, you might enjoy my new book, which is called Statistics for the Trading Floor, and it looks at how investors can use statistical analysis. It turns out that for me, double yolk eggs might actually just be lucky, as the business that I launched back in 2011 went on to be quite successful, and my new book was in the top 1% of Amazon book sales last week. But maybe it's just coincidence. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to see more content like this. Bye.